Hey y'all, so I did not plan on videoing any of this while I was out here. This is very impromptu, but I've had a lot of questions and I've had a lot of people figure out exactly where I am located, I think. So I live in Suwannee County. That gives you a very generalized location of where I am gardening. So we are the Old Zone 8B, New 9A. In the winter, I garden as an Old 8B gardener. In the summer, I garden as a New 9B gardener. The only thing that I think that zones really are important for is things that are going to survive a frost and things that are going to survive our extreme heat. So it still gets really cold here, and so I don't think things that you grow in 9 zone necessarily would survive our super cold weather here, so I would grow like a zone 8B. This is really only important for things like fruit trees and choosing varieties. So another question that I have seen asked a lot is about soil. How in the world do I have such healthy soil? Because as you know, around here, most of us have a very sandy soil. And then a lot of you have asked how I filled my raised beds and what I filled them with. So out here in the sandy soil, I have a lot of things working for me right here because right here is nice and rich and dark. And if you go about 20 feet over that way, it is white sand. So my husband's grandparents owned this land before we did, and this is actually where he planted corn and watermelons. But they also had like a nursery, and they were growing these oak trees behind me to sell. Well, they didn't sell them, so I have a nice patch of oak trees right here. The limbs hang over this spot and provide shade. Now, some of you are going to be like, you're growing your garden in shade. Well, we have to remember that in Florida, full sun is only 4 to 6 hours a day because our heat and sun is so intense here. So this spot, when the sun is positioned right, gets 4 to 6 hours of sun a day. But like right now when I am out here to plant, it is in the shade. And that's simply because there is a canopy overhang right here. Well, with that overhang, these oak leaves drop down into this soil. And as they break down, it makes for a nice, hardy soil. Now, oak leaves can tend to be acidic, so this soil is a little bit acidic, which would be great for growing blueberries, but I decided to grow them completely across the yard where there are no oak trees. Who knows? Another thing that I do out here in the in-ground garden is we have hay barns because we have horses and cows and things like that. So any hay that drops down, I come out here and I spread it out in between my rows, around my plants, anything like that. And as it breaks down, it's going to give nutrition back to the soil. Another thing that I do is we have hogs and horses that have shavings in their stalls. So when I clean out the hog barn or the horse barn, I come out here and I put the shavings between the rows of things that are growing. Now you're going to go, that's hot compost. Yes, it is. But I'm not putting it directly around the base of my plants or at the root of my plants. And there's not enough manure mixed in with those shavings to necessarily burn that plant. Now, if I was planting straight into those shavings or straight into that manure, yes, it would absolutely burn the plants. But because I'm putting it on top of the soil and it's breaking down around the plants, then it doesn't necessarily burn my plants. I do the same thing when I clean out my chicken coops. They have shavings in them, and I put the chicken coop litter directly into my garden as well. I've talked about this recently in several other videos. When you plant beans and peas, when that crop is done and it's time to terminate it, instead of going through and pulling up that crop, you just want to take a mower or a weed eater and weed eat the tops off of that crop. You can also put those leaves and things that you chop off right back on top of the soil because they'll break down as well. But what you're doing is just chopping that top off, and so those roots and stems are left into the soil. You don't want to disturb them. I usually come through and tarp once I've done that, and those roots and stems will break down and give back to the soil as well. Now, I don't necessarily use a lot of fertilizer. For anything that is super green, I will be using a fish emulsion, just the Alaska. It's a fish byproduct. It stinks like fish. Most of you know what I'm talking about. So that is used to spray the green. Once it starts forming heads, I quit spraying with it because I think it's smelly, and I swear I can still smell it when I take it in to cook with it. So I just quit using it altogether. There is something that is not organic that I use every now and then. It's called Jack's Classic. I mainly use it to get plants up and growing well. Once they get nice and big and they start producing the fruit, I'll quit using the Jack's Classic. But I get it at, what's the local greenhouse called? I don't use much granular fertilizer just because granular fertilizer takes a long time to start breaking down. Once you sprinkle it onto the top of the soil, you have to really mix it in, and then it takes about 2 weeks for that granular fertilizer to even begin to start breaking down and become readily available for your plants. So I usually do use granular fertilizer like right when I'm starting to plant out here, but after that, I don't use it a whole lot. We've also added manure and different things out here in this garden, so I shouldn't need a whole lot of extras put out here in the garden. You can do soil tests. I actually did one this year. I need to up my nitrogen and I need to up my sulfur. So we're going to use ammonium nitrate before we plant any of our hardy green vegetables. And I may not necessarily have worried about it, except for green vegetables need a ton of nitrogen because green vegetables were eating the leaves. And so nitrogen makes things grow nice green leaves. If you have too much nitrogen when you're trying to grow something like a tomato or a squash, then they may not necessarily produce fruit, and you'll get a lot of a big, nice, green, healthy plant, but not much fruit because you've got too much nitrogen on it. So just something to think about. Now, in the raised bed gardens, a lot of you have asked how in the world I filled them. So I filled them with a basic soil. If you go to Evachex in Lake City, you can get a load of topsoil delivered, which that's a fantastic place to shop. You can also buy compost from them as well. If you do not need loads that Evachex sells, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's, buy bagged soil. You can get just regular topsoil from Home Depot and Lowe's to fill. I don't do the lasagna method where you put like the twigs and things. I don't really like that unless I'm filling up the water troughs that I have out in my garden. So I filled it just with soil because mine are only, I think, like 12 inches deep. So just something to think about. And I think like sticks and twigs would take up a lot of the soil, and as they break down, your soil falls a lot. So I fill with topsoil. Then I come in with the compost. If you don't buy compost at somewhere like Evachex or any local place, you can buy Black Cow in bags from Home Depot or Lowe's, and it works fantastic. And then I came in and I mixed some compost in. That was when I just started them. So they're old now. They're 12 years old, like I said. So now I am adding bedding from the horse barn, from the cows, from wherever I can scrounge up some compost, I add it in there. So at the end of every season, I come in and I add bedding, compost, etc. into my beds, and they're just constantly getting things added, so they're never super depleted of any nutrients. Now I will in those fertilize the exact same way. I think that I've answered all the questions about soil. So now that I've answered all that, the real reason that I was out here, which sparked this, is back here in this plot today, I am fixing to plant peas. It is the end of August, almost. Like Saturday will be the end of August, basically. And so I usually plant peas in September. These are Green Arrow peas. I have some from High Mowing, and then I have another bag from Haas if I use all of these. These are Green Arrow shelling peas. I normally don't grow the PLS 595, I think are the numbers, but last year I could not get those, so I switched to the Green Arrow shelling pea. And then Haas doesn't sell the PLS 595, so when I was restocking my bulk seeds, I was ordering from Haas, and so I just went ahead and bought the Green Arrow shelling pea again. They're both very comparable. Now, the Green Arrow shelling peas are not like a snow pea. These are the ones that you shell, and they are like an English pea. This year I froze them, and like this next time that I grow them, I think we're going to try and can them because they take so long to cook on the stove, and I need fast food a lot right now. So I'm going to try and can these. But anytime I have an open patch, I try and grow beans or peas. We always throw in extra beans or peas because we eat a ton of beans and peas. I mean, this is a really good filler for any meal. So these have a 60 to 75 day, I think, maturity. Last year, I think they went about 90 days before they fully filled out. Days to maturity just means from the time you plant it and it sprouts to when it's ready to harvest. So like I said, I think these actually went like 90 days. They went a little bit more, and it could just be that our heat has them slowed down a little bit. and they did die in the frost. So they're supposed to be a little bit frost tolerant, but they were not tolerant of that first frost. It really knocked them back. So I want to get these in and hopefully get these to mature before we get that first frost in November. Now, like I said, these do not do super well in the heat. So I'm just praying that with the shade and hopefully cool weather is on the way, that these will mature before we get that first frost. So I'm going to go ahead and get these into the ground. I have a Chapin seeder, but you can also do this by hand, dig a trench and just like drizzle the seeds down it or whatever. So we're going to get these into the planter and get my new plate on, and I'm just going to plant them in this small patch that is right back here. I was growing, what kind of peas was I growing? I don't remember. I was growing some type of peas back here. I've had it tarped, and then yesterday I went in and I harrowed it up a little bit, so, or tilled it up. So let's get these planted. Okay, so I am officially done. We have planted our first crop of fall 2026 vegetables now. So those will be ready in, like I said, about 90 days is what I have estimated. Now you can get several plantings of the green arrow peas in, which is why I go ahead and buy like this 1 pound package. So when I harvest those, and after that first like super hard frost in November, then I'll go ahead and replant them, because usually we don't get frost after frost after frost. Usually. So hopefully from November to January we can get another harvest of these planted, and then we can also do another harvest of them in the spring. You may just have to use a frost cloth when we get those super hard frost in like the late one in like February, March. But you can get several plantings of these throughout the year is basically my point, I guess. So go ahead and buy the big old bag. You do not need a trellis for these. These will grow only about, I think it's like 24, 36 inches tall. And they're tendrils. Instead of like crawling up a trellis, they'll kind of like intertwine with each other and they'll hold each other up into nice big rows. So this isn't a pea that you're going to need a trellis for, like a snow pea you need a trellis for. And I'll plant those as well because I like eating those just when I'm out in the garden. So if you have any questions, of course, let me know. And here is to fall gardening. We have our starts on the back porch. They've all popped up. I have a frog that keeps getting in my trays though, and so I'm worried he's going to start eating them. But happy planting. It's almost September, October, which means it's about time to put all of our starts out in the garden. Hopefully cool weather is on the way, because right now it is still super hot. But I'm not going to water these in today. That's probably something else to mention. It is fixing to rain here. I hope. We need rain. So I'm not going to water these in just because it's fixing to rain. If it doesn't rain, then I'll water them in this afternoon. But of course, always water in any seeds that you start. So happy planting. Let me know if y'all have any more questions. I am super local to most of y'all. I know a lot of y'all have figured it out, but I figured I would just confirm that. I've confirmed it a little bit in the comments. If you see me out in public, say hey. I am socially like awkward, so I may like act completely crazy, but definitely tell me that you see me. I know several of you already have. So happy gardening. Let me know if y'all have any questions.